it went from more of a momentary thing to something that I eventually recognized as an ability. Where's the line between what we do and who we are?
Did it alarm you or did it scare you?
Absolutely not.
I feel like it might have been hard for you to relate to people your own age. Was that hard?
Some people were really into that. Others were really frightened.
This woman stole her intentionally.
Yes, intentionally to use her for various things. Served time with the Manson family and had a feud with the Manson family. As much as you plan in your life, there is no preparation for death, truly. It's just like, surprise, if you don't do this, you're going to die.
Holy
What do you even do?
Things would come out.
I want to know at what age, and I'm sure everyone asks you this, but I just need to know for my own thing, what age you felt like there was another layer to who you were with the medium, with the clairvoyance.
Well, I think for me, there were many moments of kind of having to come out of the psychic closet. I did not recognize this as an ability initially. My first real premonition that I can recall strongly happened when I was 10 years old. And I woke up one night and just had this knowingness that my grandmother was going to die. And my Nana and I were very close. She was my best friend. And shortly thereafter, we received the phone call that my grandmother had indeed died right in front of my dad. And that moment, was just kind of racked up as, okay, Tyler and Nana were close. Maybe there was some connection there. We didn't even tell my dad. It was kind of a secret between my mom and I. But then these moments of knowingness happened again and again and again. And it went from more of a momentary thing to something that I eventually recognized as an ability. But it took years of these things just happening spontaneously in order to kind of refine it.
When you say knowing, it's probably very familiar to you because it's like a knowing is something, but to someone like Michael and I, like, how would you explain it to a kindergartner? What does a knowing mean?
Yeah. For me, I interpret a knowingness as, in essence, almost like a memory that isn't yours. I find that when I do readings for people, very often I will have very vivid, almost recognized, symbols, things that feel familiar or almost as if I've experienced it myself. And that's always kind of an indication that somebody's coming through. And so for me in my process, that knowingness is important. But on a more practical level, everybody has an intuition. Everybody has the ability to get a first impression and to go with those gut inclinations. And so I think that's something that's accessible to everybody.
When you're like in the room with someone, say you're like doing an interview, like you said with USA Today, like, do you feel everyone in the room? And I guess the question, we have some people in the room right now. Can you feel everyone in the room, or is that not how it works?
There's definitely an awareness of the people in the room, but I've learned that it's almost kind of like a volume dial in the sense that when I go about my day-to-day life having to be logical or rational or answer a question or even pull from my own memories, I have to be in a certain mindset. And then when I'm not in that mindset, more of an imaginative mindset through scribbling, that's when I'm able to kind of tune in and turn that volume dial up through certain processes.
It makes sense. I asked this plastic surgeon once, I'm like, when you go to dinner, are you just like looking at everyone's face and saying like, she's a millimeter off, she could use a little lip filler? Like, is that going? And he said the same thing you just said, is he can turn off that aesthetic eye. And obviously this is different, but he can turn it off or on. And when he's on, he's like a sculptor. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like anyone. I think, there are certain qualities that make us good at what we do, but being inquisitive, being a podcaster, there's aspects there of like, where's the line between what we do and who we are?
When you first started to recognize that this was an ability, did it alarm you or did it scare you? Or was it like one of these things where it's like, hey, that volume is loud and I want it off? Or were you just like, hey, this is natural?
It felt very natural. It was very subjective. To be fair, I was an only child and still am. And so I spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time in, imaginary land where I was able to kind of create my own toys and very much, lived in my own world. So it wasn't frightening when I would have these experiences that seemed to reflect, an outer reality. It was more other people's responses to these experiences. I would say things as I would be at school to kids at school, and they would be true. Some people were really into that. Others were really frightened.
Like, what's an example of some of the things you would say?
So there was an instance, for some reason, I found that walking the PE track with the other boys, that like would get me into kind of like a daydream-like state. I would be, walking a 30-minute mile, picking dandelions. Like I wouldn't really be working out of any sort, but it would just kind of allow me to lollygag and kind of get into this altered state of consciousness. And there was an instance where I pointed at this kid I was walking with, and I said, "Did you and your grandpa have peanut butter sandwiches?" And he said, yes. And I said, did he stick a pickle on one of those peanut butter sandwiches? And the kid like went white because indeed that was a memory that he had with his grandpa. And he was like, yes. How did you know that? And I was like, I don't know. And I just kept walking. So you had, reactions of people going, wow, that's weird, interesting. And then you also had people who were very frightened. And as I started reading Teachers, which happened by my freshman year of high school, I was getting all sorts of responses.
When you say reading Teachers, are you like going up to them and saying, hey, I just want to let you know, blah, 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 blah?
There was an instance where I, in my freshman year, read my algebra teacher. And she was a very successful mathematician, very logical. She went on to actually win an award for the best teacher in the United States shortly thereafter. So go Teachers. But I got an impression one day around her of a name. Lorraine was the name. And it kept kind of coming through in my mind, almost like a song stuck in my head. And at the end of class, I decided to come up to my teacher and tell her that I was getting this impression. And she was open to it. She said the timing was kind of interesting that I was talking to her. And so as I shared with her that I felt there was this Lorraine, all of this information started coming out about my teacher's love life and about the fact that she had gotten a divorce and what led to the divorce. And Lorraine was coming through and saying, I love you like a mother loves a daughter, no matter what. My teacher was in tears by the time I ended up speaking. And at the end, she shared with me that Lorraine was her former mother-in-law. So my teacher had gotten a divorce, and it was a pretty difficult divorce. And the only mother figure in her life that she ever really resonated with was this mother of the family she married into. So when Lorraine came through, she had just died a couple days prior. She came through in that moment to say, I love you no matter what, regardless of the technicalities, the human relationships that didn't work out. I love you like a mother loves a daughter.
Does it ever make you uncomfortable, or has it ever made you uncomfortable how emotional people get when you say these things?
I think of tears as a release on some level. I really do. I think people don't cry enough. I think there really is something very healing. I kind of take a Jungian approach that everything evocative, everything that means something generally in the human experience it generally involves fluid. Tears are an emotional release. We bleed. Reproduction requires fluidity. There's something about water and fluid that is emotional by nature and important.
You're
Are
right.
there any things over the years that come through that scare you? Or is it not like that? Is it more like you're just like a conduit? Like are there things you're like, whoa, this is really scary. I need to not entertain this.
There are things that have came through that are so big that make me feel so small and so unable to fully grasp even an inkling of it that I would say has been what's scary. Through my work and through practice of trying to communicate with the other side, I've gotten the sense that there are things that are so much bigger than us. And that's very humbling.
Do you think we're in a simulation?
I have wondered. I think there's definitely different forms of life. I think that consciousness is very complicated. And I think there are many forms of consciousness in the universe. And they all kind of have something to relate to one another.
When COVID happened, the frequency was off. Did you feel that?
Everybody found themselves in a very liminal time, a very transitionary time. When COVID happened, we all entered into a threshold state where everything was up in the air, everything was in limbo. And that made a lot of people, I think, have to assess their lives up until that point, what they had held on to, what they were proud of, and if they wanted to continue living in that way. So it allowed for an opportunity, I think, for big shakeup.
Do you feel the disarray of the world when it's off of alignment?
Not as much as you would think. I very much am more connected to one-on-one, like individuals versus large-scale collective things. I'm not great at like predicting natural disasters or elections, but I'm much more inclined when I connect with a person one-on-one to kind of get an idea of the trajectory of their current life, maybe where it's headed, in a more accurate way.
I'm sure over the years, and maybe your math teacher was one of these people, how do you answer skeptics? People, and I'm sure we're not the first person to ask you that question. When people say, hey, I don't believe in any of this,
Totally.
yes, how do you respond to those people?
I think if I wasn't okay with skepticism, I should be in a different industry. Since I was 18, I've dealt with skepticism and I embrace it. I think skepticism is how we answer questions. It's how we present questions and ultimately how we kind of get a sense of inquiry into reality. I think when it comes to the subject, there is oftentimes a binary belief that it's either all real or all fake. I think that we live in a very complicated reality where people do have subjectively powerful experiences that can't be quantified scientifically. In fact, it's not even a scientific matter. It's more of a subjective one. When we talk about kind of the world of intuition, it's a lot more qualitative than quantitative. So like when we think of the pursuits of math and science, that is more quantitative, numbers, breaking things down, right? The world of art and mediumship and all of that is very qualitative. There's qualities to it. It can't really be pinned down in a quantitative way. So I approach it more from a subjective angle than an objective one. I don't really think of mediumship as a scientific pursuit. I just think of it more as a personal, more religious experience that people can sometimes find meaning in.
What is it like to be in a relationship with you? Like, I mean, like if like, no, I'm curious because I would wonder, like, are you reading the person that you're with?
Like, oh, grandma's here.
And also, like, when you're dating, like, what was that? Like, what is it like?
Yeah. Well, I will say this. One benefit of, I think, having this ability, but one thing we all can access through intuition is discernment of understanding who we resonate with and who we don't.
Yeah.
I think we all get first impressions. We all shake someone's hand and we either get a feeling of like, or whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And there's great power in that. My ability has allowed me, I feel, to kind of determine who is going to be a good fit and who's not. And that's something we all have access to. I think people would be a lot less disappointed if they truly went with their intuition when it comes to partners or potential for even friendships. So it's really helped.
So do you think it's fair to say that maybe people that are more analytical or quantitative have done a good job at maybe blocking out some of their qualitative side of the brain? Meaning like I'm just thinking of a mathematician, like somebody there.
Also, I would say that I would say that before you and I were dating, that you were not as open energetically as you are now. And I mean that as a compliment that you've evolved.
Yeah. I've definitely gotten more open over the years. I mean, I would definitely lean probably now and earlier in life more like quantitative. Am I saying that right? Quantitative. Yeah. And more like logic driven. And I'm looking for like the thing to fit into the box, right? But over the years, I think I've just talked to so many people and seen too many things to now write off. You know, like I believe in, you know, energy and spirituality. And there's a bunch of things there's just been too many things in my life that I've seen that you like can't have an explanation for. Sure. But I wonder, like, there's a lot of people that are they're rigid in this. And
your grandma has a Japanese spirit.
Yeah. And if you start, yeah, I mean, she would always say that. My grandma's passed, but no. But I the reason I'm asking that is I think we do a good job as humans shutting off a lot of our like childlike thoughts, our imagination, our intuition. Even take dating, for example. I think all of us get that feeling in our stomach, and you can kind of tell if something's right or wrong, but we are good at ignoring those signals. So that's why I ask is like, are people as adults, they get better at turning off that side?
Definitely. I love that you brought up that point because it really speaks to that conversation around our inner child and the fact that even if we are adults, we are all walking around on some level as damaged children in one way or another. And there have actually been studies that indicate that there is something to be said around intuitive thinking and being a child. There's been some indications that around 12, 13, children start reporting a reduction in intuitive experiences, in religious experiences. They tend to kind of outgrow the imaginary friends and start living more in a world of structure and boundaries, usually because they're told what to believe, or rather what's not appropriate to believe. And so that really does. It puts us in boxes. It doesn't allow us to really freely explore our imagination, which I think is key to what I do and might be an insight into intuition.
I think we've damaged kids with Santa Claus.
Why?
Because like it's like this wondrous thing and you believe in it and you love it, and then one day someone comes in and says like, hey, it's all been fake and a lie and not real, and it like gets you to, and same with the Easter Bunny.
No, Santa Claus is an energy.
No, but you get what I'm saying. It's like it's a
energy,
child.
it's the holiday
and then,
special.
But listen, then there's a portion of your childhood where it's like you're almost shamed if you still believe in those things by other kids. Like, ooh, you didn't real. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of social pressure to be like, oh, this is real.
You think that we're damaged by Santa Claus? You're really going to say that? That's a little soft.
There is something. There is something about the expectation.
I'm not saying. I'm just using it as an example of like there's a moment in time as a child where you have this great imagination. Lauren, can you pipe down? You have this imagination, and then one day you're told to stop having that imagination. Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And
like one day you're playing with toys, and the next day you're saying like, ooh, that's like for babies.
Yes, exactly. Well, it goes from Santa Claus is objectively real to, nope, he's just subjectively real. He's in your heart.
And also,
That's painful.
if you still think he's real,
Right.
we're going to shame you.
Objectively, yes. And so it definitely
See,
puts
Lauren?
him through the ringer.
There's a point.
He's still real in my head.
I like it.
What do you wish that people collectively knew more about being intuitive and mediums? Like, what do you wish that the general population just knew more about?
I think mediumship gets a reputation as just being communicating with the other side, getting a message from the departed, and then relaying it to someone who's here. And I, for me, really want to expand that definition. A huge part of my life has been dictated by synchronicities or meaningful coincidences, moments in which time and space seem to align in uncanny ways, either at a time of great need, where the universe seemed to reflect an answer to a question. And that, for me, is something that I find to be a way that they communicate on the other side. They want us to know of their presence, but they don't just visit in dreams. They often use timing. And mediums are kind of like coincidence makers. If they can bring something up about your life that only you know, in that moment you are hearing something coincidentally that is giving you an insight into an opportunity for connection, with a loved one.
When you get approached by E to do a show, how old were you when they approached you?
It was like 18.
It was early.
Or
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know if they approached you, you could tell us more. Like,
They did,
but was that like a wild experience? Did you know that was going to happen?
I didn't see it coming in,
Okay.
in that regard. That was just kind of a natural synergy. I had no aspirations to be on TV. I happened to be reading celebrities off and on as a teenager. And then ultimately there was interest in trying to kind of capture that aspect of my life. But, I was initially kind of hesitant. E-Network, being the E-Network, wanted to do a show, if they were going to do one, about celebrities, because it's all about Hollywood. And I, coming from a little town in the middle of nowhere, was very not celebrity. The few clients that I had at that time, had just reached out by phone from 200 miles away. So Sarah Paulson was my first celebrity client. That kind of kicked everything off. And then I had to read either 30 executives and their friends and family to really kind of get put through the ringer and tested to make sure that their investment was legitimate.
What does it look like to work with you now? Like, if I did a reading with you, is it 10 minutes? Is it an hour? Is it $7 million? Like what does it really look like at this minute to work
If
with
it's $7 million, I'm going to become a medium.
Yes,
I'll
I'll share if that's the case.
I'm going to shut this podcast down.
That's right. We're all going to pull our money together.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's evolved and
Sure.
changed as
Absolutely.
you've become more known.
Yeah. So 95% of my readings are done for free, which does surprise a lot of people. They're like, how the heck do you make a living? But I'm able to do group readings through various venues, resorts, that kind of thing. I've written a couple books. And so I'm able to make a living while still dedicating my time and doing readings for free. So the way that we do that generally, is virtual at this point, but there's a lot of opportunities to connect.
So you don't have to physically be in a room with someone.
How long does it take?
It can range from 45 minutes to, I sat with Carmen Electra for like 7 hours. Yeah, we sat for that. We were there all afternoon, all evening, and she just had a lot of questions. And I was like, all right, well, we got answers. Let's see. And, thankfully stuff came through, but if it hadn't, I would have had to cut it off.
And so at this point, there's no show. So you're just doing this
This one was on the show.
This
So
was on
Carmen
the show.
Electra, I think, was season 2. I can't remember. They blended together, but yeah.
Who are some huge celebrities that were on the show that you did a reading for that their mind was blown?
Yeah, well, LaToya Jackson was a big one because of the Michael Jackson connection. And as a medium, that presented a lot of challenges because that's like the most known family short of the Kardashians. And so I had to be able to connect information about Michael that wasn't public knowledge, that had never been mentioned in interviews. Obviously, I recognized LaToya when I saw her. So immediately everything just collectively tightened. I was like, oh no, what if I'm just sensing a brother comes through and nothing specific? Well, I sat down with her and immediately information started coming through about Michael and Michael's children and messages to give them. And they were very specific and detailed. And LaToya was able to extend that to his daughter, who I've since been in touch with.
And what does that sound like in your head? Like, is it something that you can see, or is it something you hear, or is it just like more of like a memory that gets supplanted into your head?
It generally, in instances of extreme specificity about things that have already occurred, usually feels like a memory that I know isn't mine, but I somehow can kind of tap into. And that's kind of the best way to describe it. So when we talk about family dynamics or things that have already happened, if for example, I'm reading someone and something comes through about, dad, hurt brother and dad and brother aren't talking, that'll feel like a memory that's not mine. I don't have a brother. So that's kind of how I would describe it.
That is wild. Do you ever what you do is like crazy. Do you I feel like it might have been hard for you to relate to people your own age with this. Was that hard?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was just kind of different in a lot of ways. I was very shy, very agoraphobic, very introspective, an only child, as I mentioned.
Your mom said you were very mature from a very young age.
That's very sweet. I had her fooled. But no, I was very close to my parents. My mom and my dad were my best friends. So.
And was it like you just wanted to be around adults because you have this like different layer that a lot of kids your age didn't have?
I mean, I got along with kids my own age for sure. I enjoyed being a kid, but I just found that there were adult callings, as a child. There would be very adult themes that would come through. I would sit with my mom and she'd be interacting with her friends, having a friend over for dinner, and I'd say, "Oh no, Mom, you can't trust that lady." And my mom would go, "Why? You're 7 or 8," even before my initial premonition. And I'd say, because she wasn't nice to your other friend, and this is why. And so these things would just come out and they'd be very weird and specific and detailed and would kind of put me in very adult situations. So
Tyler, I need you to come to every single interview with me, and I need you to help me prepare. That's amazing.
Just follow us around, be like, no.
I would never let you move out if you were my son. I'd be like, you're staying in the guest house.
We can put me in like a Zoltan
You're never
like
gonna let
box.
our son move out anyway.
I know, he's going to live with his mom.
Stick a quarter in there and I'll just dispense advice.
I mean, that's amazing.
It's
I have
interesting.
a side question to this, which is maybe sounds kind of crazy. How do you think about death at this point? Is this something that, like, how do you specifically look at it? Because I think obviously it's an event that takes place in everyone's life eventually.
Sure. Yeah.
And I wonder how you think about it.
I still look both ways when I cross the street. I still have an appreciation, and in fact, a deeper appreciation for life and the fragility of life. I have sat with people who have passed of all sorts of things or brought through people who've died in a number of manners. And I've realized that as much as you plan in your life, there is no preparation for death, truly. Even when we expect it to happen, there's almost always regret. I wish I would have spent more time. I wish I would have done more. And so if anything, I think I've been able to seize the moment more fully, more genuinely than some other people that I've seen who perhaps don't take that approach.
So for you in your own life, is it something you're fearful of? Is it something you're anxious about? Is it something you think about? Or is it just...
It's just kind of a process. I think of death akin a lot to birth. We kind of think of this idea of, birth being this process in which we, enter an insulated realm into another realm. We see the light, the opening, and then we pop out of the womb. And I think of death as kind of similar. We see a light, we're going through it, hopefully don't get spanked when we go through on the other side like we do at birth. But there's something very similar in those natural processes. And it's the same reason why I believe people don't necessarily get stuck when they pass. Just as, the birth process has certain modalities, contractions to kind of get us from where we are to where we're meant to be, I think of death as having certain processes that allow us to move forward in a conscious way so we don't get trapped, in essence.
I will spank my husband at birth. Death.
Oh.
I will give him a big spank at death.
There you go. Something to look forward to.
I'll spank your ass
Counting
when
down
you
the
die.
days.
That's right.
I'd like you to go a week before me.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right,
I could go. I want to spank you.
what if we went together at the same time? Actually,
that's a lot.
No,
That's like
that's a
the
lot.
Notebook.
No, what if maybe you go first and maybe I'll have a second run.
I'm
We'll see
putting
what
you
else
on
is-
the spot right now, but I didn't even ask you this off air. Do you do readings on podcasts?
I have before, but usually it's something that requires like 60 minutes and a scribble and a pen and paper.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It's not something you can just like do in 2 minutes.
It's one of those things I kind of have to prepare to turn on. It's generally like a reduction of stimulus. So I find like before I do a reading, I like to have like a lot of quiet. I try to kind of like not have a lot of visual stimulus.
That's what your mom said.
Yeah.
She said when she drives with you in the car, sometimes you just want to be quiet.
And let me tell you, she always has something to say. She'll be like, "Oh, look, a cat. Oh, look, sorry, hit a curb." And I'm like, "Mother!" And it's a true test. That's a true meditation, let me tell you.
Can I do a reading with you off air at another time over Zoom?
Absolutely. I would love that. That'd be so fun.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
What is...
I'm a little scared. I don't know if I want to hear what these...
That's okay.
Can you explain to me the difference between a psychic and a medium, and there's something else? What's the other thing?
There's lots of phrases. Clairvoyant might be what you're thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the differences?
So mediumship is a psychic ability, but so is, psychic abilities are generally attributed to being just kind of a large definition, overlapping definition. Psychics are, mediumship's a psychic ability, telling the future is a psychic ability, right? But mediumship is more attributed to just being a conduit for people on the other side or forces on the other side. So a medium acts as kind of someone in the middle between here and there. And they use their psychic abilities to bridge that gap, to communicate a message. Sometimes that's with spirits, sometimes it's with people's higher selves or whatever you want to believe. Some people think they're getting it from God. When we talk about psychics, that generally has more of a fortune-telling connotation or a more future trajectory kind of orientation.
And that's not what you do, right?
And that is technically different.
It's different. But do you ever feel future situations?
I will very often feel the trajectory of present events as they are going in a future direction. So the analogy I give is almost like a frisbee. If you throw a frisbee in the air, about midway through it landing, you're going to get an idea probably where it's going to land, right? There's a trajectory. And so events are kind of like trajectories. I think an intuitive person can kind of get a sense of the path you're on currently, with the understanding that the future is subject to change. A gust of wind can come and knock the frisbee off course, of course. But it can help us kind of get a forecast of where we are based on the present moment. I don't personally believe the future's set in stone.
What do you think the other side is? There's a lot of people that think of these concepts from a religious standpoint. Some people think about it from spiritual. There's all sorts of different thought processes. Like, from your experience, like, what do you think that other side is, or where is it, or even what is it?
Sure. The closest I've ever been able to come to an answer is an understanding of it being experiential. I've often asked, is it a place? And they have conveyed that to some extent. Explaining things to me or to any of us is a bit like trying to explain arithmetic to a squirrel. We are kind of limited in our understanding of what we can fully grasp. But they have communicated that it is an experiential thing beyond time. And that's what's really interesting. Whatever goes on there is not abiding by the 24-hour unit of time that we have in a day. And that's very interesting in and of itself. It seems to reflect that consciousness continues, that consciousness evolves and reflects an interconnection between all things. And that's what I truly believe we get to on the other side.
I know this sounds strange, and maybe you've never had experience with this, but we've had people come on this show that have talked about extreme psychedelic experiences with things like DMT and all sorts of things I'm sure you've heard of.
Yeah, I'm so curious.
And a lot of
hear
those
what you
people
say
that
about
come
this.
on come back with the understanding that there's just like something much greater and much bigger than themselves that they almost can't explain.
It's almost like Tyler's always on mushrooms.
Maybe.
I just wear a mushroom hat everywhere I go. I'm like a little toad from Mario Brothers.
I don't know that you could do mushrooms.
I think my head would explode.
Yeah, I don't think you can do mushrooms.
I would start sensing the living. I'd start communicating with living people. It would just
I
invert.
honestly don't think you do. I don't.
Have you ever heard people that you've worked with talking about those experiences?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, shamanistic experiences are ancient and certainly predate me. And a lot of those were facilitated through plant medicine at their corresponding times in ceremonial environments. I do and have spoken on the fact that, I when it comes to hallucinogens, encourage discretion. I have dear friends who have used hallucinogenic drugs in the name of wellness and then unfortunately developed dissociative, symptoms and kind of lost the rocker. So I think it's important to use discretion, but I do think of it as a tool like any other and not one I've actually ever used.
Can you spot a fake? Like when you walk by Miss Madame Medusa's fortune teller
Sure.
with the red fish on the street, are
Yeah.
you like, that's fake?
I am not inclined to write people off before I experience them, but I will say very often on some level in those situations, this is funny coming from someone who does most of my readings for free, you get what you pay for in a lot of cases. And the same way that you wouldn't get a $10 consult from a physician, you kind of want to know where you're going to get an experience. It's a practice.
When you say you do your readings for free, how do you make what you do into a business by doing it for free?
So the one-on-one readings are really where I prioritize my free experience. Those are instances where I'm able to meet with people privately. And so we do those through a combination of things through charities like Project Angel Food. We've been able to raffle, I think, close to $300,000 worth of readings just to feed the homeless people in LA.
That's
over
cool.
2,400 meals a day.
That's awesome.
Which is incredible. So we're able to do that. I do meet often with terminally ill people. People will write in and sometimes share that they're nearing the end of their life. And so those are the people I like to meet with the most. And that's obviously for free. So
How many readings do you do a day?
It's been a lot less as of now, with recent things. I do group readings a lot more.
This is maybe a weird question, but I was just telling someone off air when I do this podcast, like, yesterday we had 3, today we have 2. I have to find pockets in my day to conserve my energy to show up as my best self.
Yeah.
And I can imagine with what you do, there's so much energy and your capacity is so, I don't know if it's drained or like, it's like a cell phone battery. It's like, it's low when you're putting all this energy towards reading.
Sure.
Do you have tactics that you use to recharge?
Absolutely. I think using my intuition in a way that isn't work related is really helpful. So when I'm not doing this, I go home and I, work on art, which for me is a very intuitive process.
Yeah.
Whether it's painting or making music, you have to know where to start and when to stop. And it's true for almost all creative processes that result in some end result. And so I use my intuition in that way, knowing, okay, that doesn't need any more blue there, or, okay, this painting's done, I'm finished. And that works off of an inner knowing in a different way than we see in readings, but still keeps that faculty sharp, but not just something that's just for professional life.
Do you need a lot of time alone?
Yes.
I would think
yeah.
so.
As an only child, absolutely. Naps are nice.
Like, I feel like you just need to be like cerebral and just be left alone and to your own devices to putz around.
Yeah. I like to putz. I'm a big fan of putzing. We got
Lauren's
some putts
big
around.
putzer, yeah.
Were we
Huge
putzing?
putzer. I think there's something about just thinking things out and just putzing around. Maybe we're organizing our skincare.
Yeah.
Putzing down to get a snack, maybe a little plowman's lunch, a Cornishin, some cheese. Putzing back.
She's putzing right now.
She's
and
putzing.
No, I
she's
don't
gone.
like to be constantly like run. Do
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
I need space.
Right. Well, it's interesting you say that because it sounds like there's certain aspects of routine.
Totally.
Right. And that's ritual.
Yes.
And we in society are really hard up for ritual.
Yes.
She did tell me and I've seen she's done weird things. Again, I was talking earlier about like things that have made me just not as logical. Like she told me our son's birthday before he was born, months and months before, on the exact date that was not the due date. And it happened on that date.
69. I am clairvoyant-ish.
Yeah. Very cool.
She's done things like that a few times where she will say certain things and I'll be like, whoa.
You know how you just told me that you can tell like the woman that she's like wants bad things for your mom or she had like a bad attitude? I relate to that, but I'm not doing anything that you can do. There's an ish.
Yeah.
There's an ish.
Of course.
No, but
is that fair to say that some people have an ish?
Absolutely. Look, that ish is just a byproduct of being conscious. And if I'm being honest here, really think that psychic abilities, psychic experiences, whatever, are just a byproduct of consciousness. It's a natural part of being human. Some people have it more than others. Some people are willing to recognize it more than others. But it reflects that we're a lot more connected to one another than we realize.
Have you found a correlation with people that maybe lean that way more or tapped more into their creative side or compared to the other? I'm just wondering because
for sure.
It sounds like you're a very creative person. I know she's a creative. Like I don't have that kind of thing.
So interestingly, the government worked with psychics in the 70s and 80s at one point through Project Stargate, which really tested something called remote viewing, which is the ability to intuit visual images of things from a distance. It's basically clairvoyance. And when they were looking for their candidates for this program, were looking for people who were artistically inclined in the military and bilingual. They found that there were actually certain qualities that made people easier candidates to develop intuition. So people who had musical inclinations, creative inclinations, bilingual inclinations, people who are also good at math. It's clearly not just a rational, logical thing and not clearly just a creative and, right brain thing. It's a mixture of both. And people who have strengths in both areas are good candidates for psychic abilities.
What do you do if you're around a person that you get that pit in your stomach and your vibe is just off? Like what do you remove yourself right away? What do you do?
When people make me feel weird, I try to not villainize them and understand that maybe there's something they're bringing to the table that's just like a lot of hurt or a lot of pain.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how I learned this. In season 1 of my show, as an immature little 19-year-old on Hollywood Medium, would sit with people, and sometimes these clients would be difficult. And
You're saying celebrities can be
you know,
difficult?
sometimes
What?
there would be a lady sitting there stone faced, not validating anything, and I would leave that reading and I think, oh, that was such a difficult person. I remember telling my showrunner, oh, that person was ugh, didn't like them, and she said, Tyler, that wasn't ugh, that was hurt. She was hurting. What you interpreted as her not liking you was her in pain. And that really changed things for me because I did realize in that moment, oh, look, this isn't about me. This is so much more than me. And I think we take things personally way too much in life without considering what the person's going through. We make it all about us very often.
It's a lot of, I think, projection too. Like,
yes.
I can see though how you would interpret that as someone being like mean or rude or hard to get along with. Like it makes sense.
Yeah.
In that lane, you've been around a ton of grief in your life, right? Obviously, I imagine one of the main reasons people come to you is it starts with grief and they're looking for maybe some kind of closure. Is that accurate to say? Or
I used to use the word closure a lot. I used to think it was a really solid descriptor, but I learned that there really is no closer. There is no close to grief, just as there is no close to love, right? So I think that's an ongoing relationship we carry with us, grief.
So when people come to you at this point and they're maybe trying to get rid of their grief, how do you talk them through that?
Yeah.
If from your perspective, if it's something you don't get rid of.
I think what he's saying is you don't get rid of it. It's not linear. Like it's sometimes you have a day where you feel it really deep and then sometimes it's not as deep and then there's time that goes by and then maybe something comes up like when you have kids, if you've lost a parent, that can bring up a whole thing. It's not, it doesn't really go away.
Right. It's kind of like weight. We all carry it differently in our body, right? And it's something we're never going to get rid of. We're never going to get rid of the grief. We will work around the grief. We will live through the grief. We will carry the grief, but the grief doesn't fully go away. And I think it shouldn't. On some level, we'd have to forget all of what was worth missing.
Is your biggest grief that you've ever had with your grandma?
I experienced the loss of a close friend of mine. His name was Terry, and he had brain cancer, and he passed away when he was 18. And he was my childhood friend, my best friend, my first person I ever really loved. And I knew that he was going to die years before he actually passed. And I had to make the choice of whether to tell him what I knew or not. And I couldn't tell him. And I separated myself from him. And he was really upset and wondered why I just kind of ghosted him. And then he got diagnosed with brain cancer and he contacted me and told me what had happened. And I, of course, saw it coming. And he said, I'd love to meet with you. Can we see each other again? It's been years. And I said, yes, I can't wait. Let's do it. I'm so sorry. And then he died. That was the last message to me.
I don't know. What do you even do? Are you glad that you didn't tell him?
I am glad that I didn't tell him because I don't think it would have made a difference. But what I regret is how I handled that. That was an opportunity to lean in and give someone love that really was going to especially need it in the coming years. Love that I could have given if I hadn't been afraid of a reality that I couldn't cope with.
I know, but even if you had stuck around and been like the best friend ever, it would have been really hard to like look him in the eye every single day knowing that.
Exactly. And, I wasn't at a place of real maturity. I was still a kid. I would have done things differently, but it gave me an appreciation for life. And I genuinely live every day with him in mind, thinking, he would have loved to see the sunrise this morning.
What is the most common message or theme that comes through to people? Like you mentioned earlier, like there was messages for, some things that people regretted or like what have you seen a common theme come through with the people you channel?
One of the greatest common themes I think I've seen is really the understanding of ripple effect. When people die, I really can firmly say from the readings I've done, it seems that they go through a life review process in which they somehow or another kind of get an understanding of that ripple effect, of how every action and inaction kind of affected the greater collective. And so in life, we have our kind of singular perspectives, but when we die, I think we really get an understanding of how that droplet of water, so to speak, is part of a vast ocean of consciousness, really kind of interconnected in meaningful ways. So I encourage people to think about the ripple effect, not only in what they are doing, but what they're not.
So it's like a laundry list of like, I remember when I did this thing that at the time I did not think it was a big deal, but that caused this, this, and this. Like it's that kind of thought.
Yeah. And there seems to be kind of a butterfly effect understanding that they seem to get as a result of an expansion of consciousness. I don't think this is in any way really, ironically, that mystical as much as I think it's just a natural result of expansion of awareness, of becoming more conscious and therefore more conscientious of one's impact.
Quick break to talk about one of our favorite supplements, and that is the Just Thrive probiotic from one of our favorite partners, Just Thrive. The founders of Just Thrive have come on this podcast multiple times, I think 4 or 5 now. And that's because every single time they come on, we are absolutely fascinated by the topic of gut health and how to have a healthier gut microbiome. Lauren and I have been taking the Just Thrive probiotic for almost 8 years now, and it has done wonders for our gut. Many of you may recall that in past episodes, I talked about getting a blood panel done that pretty much showed I was perfectly healthy. Something still just didn't feel right. So I went and did a gut test, and sure enough, I had a bunch of gut issues. Getting on the Just Thrive probiotic absolutely helped clear all of that up, and now I'm thriving. If you're somebody that runs stress like myself, you can make a mess of your digestion, your immune system, but here's the thing, your life doesn't have to be a constant downpour. By introducing the Just Thrive probiotic into your routine, you can start strengthening your gut lining. Just Thrive also has the Just Calm product, which is a breakthrough new stress soothing formula from Just Thrive. So say goodbye to frazzled nerves and hello to steady, serene, more relaxed you. Just Calm's proprietary mood lifting blend is clinically proven to help you relax and breathe a little easier in as little as 4 weeks. Lauren and I take both products in combination, one to strengthen your gut and the other to help calm that stress down. And of course, we have a special offer for our listeners. Right now, when you go to justthrivehealth.com and use promo code SKINNY, you can get 20% off a 90-day bottle of Just Thrive probiotic and Just Calm. That's like getting a month for free. And a portion of every purchase goes to Vitamin Angels, a nonprofit organization that saves the lives of millions of children and moms to be around the world by ensuring they get the vitamins and minerals they need to stay healthy and strong.
I have figured out the perfect medley for getting kids to go to sleep. I'm not joking you. My son sleeps from 7:30 to 7:30 and I have it down on what to do. Okay. So you got to get the room pitch black. There can't be one light, like not even a speck of a light. Okay. And then I have his air filter on, which is cleaning the room. I do no noise besides 5 to 8 hertz. They're like a frequency. I use the SOAK app. And then I have his gently weighted sleep sack. It is by Dreamland Baby. I have been using this sleep sack for so long, I cannot get enough of it. I was always using a weighted blanket or like weighted neck pillows for myself, so this totally makes sense. So the lightly weighted Dreamland Baby sleep sack is basically doing what it does for you with a sleep sack. So it makes you have a deeper sleep, a better sleep. It's easy to use. It's quality material. But most importantly, what I notice personally is my son immediately calms down and associates this sleep sack with sleep. They have this cover calm technology in it that evenly distributes weight from shoulders to toes. And that's only in Dreamland Baby products. I also like the aesthetic. So they're really cute and pretty. We got him like a super neutral one. You got to try this out, okay? Everyone is obsessed online. Go to dreamlandbabyco.com and enter my code SKINNY at checkout to receive 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. This offer is for new and existing customers and makes a great baby shower gift. I was first introduced to Origins in high school. I remember shopping it all the time. I shopped it in college, and now I'm still shopping it. So that's like a testament for how long it's been around. It has the nostalgia to it. It's just an iconic brand. So if you're unfamiliar with Origins, let me tell you. It's a leader in plant-powered, high-performance skincare, and it introduces its latest innovation. It's called Youthtopia. This is a groundbreaking collection that taps into the universal symbol of health, the apple. Okay, let me tell you about the apple. Apple is so intriguing to me for skincare. There's so many benefits. This is going to deliver transformative results that protect your skin's future. The peptide plumping apple cream and the refining apple peel. It's bursting with activated stem cells and powerful peptides, which we love, helping you hold on to the smooth, plump, and bouncy skin you have for longer. Experience more radiant skin in just 1 week with the refining apple peel, while the peptide plumping apple cream provides instant plumping effects and an all-day antioxidant protection. Prepare your skin for the future with Youthtopia by Origins. Discover the transformative power of apples in skincare today. Available at origins.com and Ulta. That's origins.com and Ulta. Every single time I meditate, I don't think I've ever told you this. I meditate on, this is like weird. It's kind of to what you're saying. I meditate on my death, thinking like if I died today, when I look back, what would I want to change? And then I try to tweak what I'd want to change. So like maybe an example is I want to spend more time with my kids. So like next week, I'm going to clear my schedule. And I try to do that every single day, and it's really helpful. I don't know if you
That's
meditate, but
great.
meditation's really helped me with that area. Are you someone who likes to sit in silence and meditate?
You know, I'm so bad. I get antsy. I start being like, okay, got to check my notifications.
Wow,
But
I would not think you would
know,
say that.
I know, but I've turned it more into a lifestyle. I try to find moments of mindfulness. So versus trying to clear my mind, which I struggle with, I try to just take opportunities, like you're saying, of kind of visualize yourself at 90 years old on your deathbed. And that might be morbid to some people, but I think it doesn't hurt to do. Visualize yourself, in your last days, and imagine how beautiful it would have been to be able to walk again, to be alive, to be the age you are. Sometimes just having that shift in perspective helps break us out of, the mundane and helps us appreciate what we have more.
I'm a huge fan of a guy named Charlie Munger who passed away. He was Warren Buffett's partner. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he has like a really good saying, and he would always say, or not always say, but he did say this: write your obituary, and then go and live that way. Like basically, you write what you want your obituary to say, and then go live in that way.
Yours should say,
love
I'm
that.
going to bring my wife. He brought his wife a tray of lemon water,
I'm gonna say this: Michael
coffee with
Bostic,
ice, and apple cider vinegar every morning on
he
a tray.
lived a great
Can
life.
you imagine if I could get up and say that on an obituary? My husband every morning for 40 years brought me coffee in bed.
It's gonna say
Everyone would be like, what a guy.
What a
he
guy.
lived a great life. His first wife Lauren was amazing. His
second
second
wife-
wife,
His second wife was boring.
his-
His third wife had no color. His fourth wife was a limp dick in bed.
he
Keep going.
died sailing the open seas after his seventh wife nagged him once too many times.
I don't think so.
And
I don't think
Lauren
so.
was a distant memory.
What rituals, routines do you have around your life? Do you wake up a certain way? Do you go to bed a certain way? Or is every day different?
Well, every morning I try to open my eyes.
Nice.
And when I get up, I try to not check my phone, which is really hard to do. But for the first, let's be real, 30 seconds, I'm like, all right, let's just sit here for a moment. We have another day. We woke up. We didn't die in our sleep. And you just kind of take a moment to process that fact. And that's a good start to the day. Then I roll out of bed and, I do try to actually maintain some degree of routine. Like, I brush my teeth in a certain order. I eat breakfast in a certain order. I know that might sound a little strange, but it allows me some degree of structure in a life that is so anti-structural. I can't predict how a reading's going to go, but I can predict where my toothbrush is going to be and what time I use it.
Yep, you can.
So there's something to be said about creating structure to combat anti-structure, because we all deal with those moments where we can't control stuff.
When it comes to your own health, do you know if you're going to get sick? Do you know if you're not going to feel good? Do you know, if you were going to die in 5 days, would you know that?
I don't know. I'll keep you posted, but
But do you know when you're going to get sick?
I have had times where in one instance when I was 18 years old, I had brain surgery. I had hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain.
Whoa.
And that was a result of a brain cyst near the stem of my brain. And it was not able to be fully removed, but it basically caused brain swelling and I had to get emergency surgery. And 3 weeks before that, I was in the car with my mom and I looked over at her and I just said, Mom, I think I have water on my brain. And she was like, what? That's silly, you drama queen. And it was a weird thing to say, but it was confirmed indeed 3 weeks later.
Does
They had to
mom
relieve
believe
it.
everything you say
She
now?
does now. She does now. She doesn't call me a
Great
drama
mom.
queen. And I am a drama queen, to be fair. But
Is mom like, hey, like maybe enough with this? Like,
Yeah.
'cause there's a lot coming.
there were some really jolting moments for her, growing up. And also keeping secrets was very difficult. She had a very hard time keeping things from me. Things would come out. And, things often as a child that a child shouldn't know about their adult parent.
Oh, yikes.
My mom went through a ton of trauma and it was covered in the Netflix show. And she's writing a book about, having a homicidal mother or who she thought was her mom who served 30 years in prison for killing 2 people. And my mom was abducted as a child. It was a whole thing. And so
Whoa,
details
we gotta
about
get her on the show.
Yeah, right. Details about this horrendous mystery and the people that were killed would come through. When I was a little boy to my mom, and my mom wouldn't want to talk about it because it wasn't age appropriate, but these things happen.
Wait, your mom was abducted?
So yeah, my mom was taken as a child, as a baby, from her biological mother, who spent the rest of her life trying to look for my mom and couldn't find her. And the woman who took my mom ended up taking her all across the United States and ended up getting a job at a motel working as a maid.
But this woman stole her intentionally.
Yes, intentionally to use her for various things. And unfortunately, she got a job as a maid and ended up deciding to kill the owner of the motel and her lover to try to take it over. And so she did, and ended up trying to run it, and then ended up getting caught, and served time with the Manson family, and had a feud with the Manson family. I mean, this woman was like horrible in every way.
At what point did your mom go back to her original mother?
So my mom never got the chance to meet her biological mom. We found out only a few years ago that this woman, who I thought was my grandmother until this time, wasn't. That I actually had my real grandmother was a beautiful, lovely little old Italian woman who was looking for her daughter her whole life. She died of Alzheimer's in the early 2000s. And it said that one of the few things she could remember was that she had a little girl out there and that she was looking for her.
Wait, I don't understand when this happened with the woman that took her, and she killed you said her lover and the hotel owner. How old was your mom when this woman went to jail?
So she was around, I think, 13.
But so where did your mom go?
From there, she was actually adopted by these people who worked at my mom's school. It was the janitor and the secretary of the school. They were married, and they took a deep, interest in my mom's story and her life. And they were a Hispanic couple, and so my mom kind of had so many different cultures. She was raised with Black siblings. It was a very interesting story.
So your mom at this point didn't know she was stolen from her original mom.
She just thought that was her real mom.
They never put it together.
No.
How did she eventually
figure it out?
I guess we had to watch this documentary.
Yeah, the Netflix show covers it in depth, but I will say we did a 23andMe test recently for Christmas a few years back, and that's what started everything. Our DNA got put in the database. My mom's biological family had been looking for her whole life, and when my result came up, they were like, "Oh, this is a relative," and so they got in touch with my mom literally with a phone call and was like, "Oh, you have a whole family. You're not really related to the family you think you are," and.
So she thought for a long time that her actual mother had killed people and it wasn't her actual mother.
Correct. Yeah, she lived with that lifelong shame of thinking
Quick clarification point. Is this the grandmother you were close with, or was this the father's side?
Dad's side of family, yes.
Just need to clarify
good clarification, because my dad's mom was like made up for all of the darkness on my mom's side.
Because you're like, I was really close with my Nana. And then I was like, oh, wow.
That's
Nana was
interesting,
great.
though, of what happened to your mom and what you do. Like, there feels like something generational, energetic about that.
Let me tell you.
Yeah,
I mean,
what is that?
Stella, after she killed the two people, had who my mom thought were her siblings bury the dead bodies at the back of the motel.
Wait, she had your mother bury the dead bodies?
She had my mother's brother, who she thought was my mother's
brother,
shit. Bury the dead bodies. She said, "Hey, come over. There's a pipe that needs, work on." And then she was like, "Surprise! If you don't do this, you're going to die." So it was under the threat of death that her brother had to bury these bodies. But as he was waiting, he actually saw a dark shadow walk through the room and into the room of where the people were. And this is, a man who's not paranormally inclined. He tells the story as of late. He's, in his 60s now. And so he even had a paranormal aspect with the horrible position he was put in. And then, here I come years later.
There's it sounds like there's something like, there's like a thread there.
It appears so.
Speaking of paranormal, you remember that movie with Bruce Willis, The Sixth Sense? I'm sure you've...
Oh, yeah.
Do you believe in paranormal activity or ghosts in that kind of sense, where there's, like we were joking the other day, there's this hotel in Aspen that everybody says is haunted. There's a ghost story there. Like, do you believe in that kind of activity?
I think things exist even beyond what I believe. I am open-minded to a lot of possibilities. I've learned that if I, anoint something with belief or say, no, I don't believe in this, the universe always has a way of proving me wrong. But I will say there's something to be said about residual energy. There's something to be said about events kind of happening or occurring over and over and over again in a space and people being able to pick up on that. It's very possible. I don't discount the idea of ghosts. I just find in my own day-to-day life, I don't seem to be bothered by those types of things. Whatever I connect with seems to be on a different plane of being. Everyone seems to be kind of above it all. The idea of ghosts seems very much like still here and still kind of dealing with our human problems, and those that come through just don't.
I went to the bathroom in this hotel by myself, and I felt like really weird. And so,
but do you think it's because like you knew the story and then you got all freaked out before?
Listen to what I'm going to say. So there was a little boy that had died in the pool, and I had known that, but I felt like a weird energy when I walked to the pool.
But if you didn't know that, do you think you'd feel that energy?
Yeah, I do. So I went up to the front desk and I said, "What did this used to be?" Like, I'm talking like in the 1800s. What did this used to be? And it was a mental institution.
Well, it was more like the story is there's a boy that drowned at the hotel.
Yeah, there's a boy that drowned, but there was something about the space that felt heavy. He doesn't believe me
No,
when
no,
I say
I'm just
stuff like
saying.
this.
I'm
I'm glad that I have you on because it was there's I don't know. It's a vibe.
If I die before you, I'll linger around and haunt you for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, I could use a break.
I'll get a big chain and kind of whack it around the house.
I mean, I went to dinner with Ariel last night and he called about 45 times. I was like, you got to find a hobby besides me.
He could still do that from the afterlife. I've had people receive phone calls. In fact, there's a book called Phone Calls from the Dead. I encourage people to read it by Raymond Bayless. It happens. People get contact from electronics all the time.
Yeah, just in case she starts to find a new husband, I got to smack a book off the shelf.
That's right.
Throw a lamp on his head or something. Quick break to talk about Smart Water, one of our favorite water companies, always taking Smart Water on the go and in the studios, and specifically Smart Water Alkaline, which is the hydration choice for people looking to elevate in all areas of their lives, fitness and beyond. What we love about Smart Water Alkaline is it will keep you hydrated throughout your active life, whether you're running miles or running meetings or doing a million podcasts like yours truly. In a world filled with overthinking, Smart Water is providing a refreshing change of pace, a moment of clarity with a simple choice of hydrating with Smart Water. When it comes to living our lives, there's so much we can overthink, whether we're parenting, getting in a relationship, trying to run a business, stay productive at a job, stay healthy, which supplement to take, so on and so on. At least we don't have to overthink our water. Smart Water Alkaline is a vapor distilled bottled water with added electrolytes for a pure, crisp taste. It also has a 9.5 pH and an added oxidant. So check it out. Life's full of choices. Smart Water is a simple one. Visit drinksmartwater.com to learn more. Again, that's drinksmartwater.com.
One thing that I make all the time is my mom's pumpkin roll. Okay. I'm all about her pumpkin roll. And what I do is I'll make the pumpkin bread. I'll make it really thin. And then on top of it, I will make a cream cheese frosting. And the cream cheese that I always use for this frosting is Philadelphia cream cheese. If there's anyone that knows creamy, it's Philadelphia cream cheese. It's extremely versatile and can be used to enhance any meal, snack, or anything in between. Philadelphia makes everything creamier, including my mom's pumpkin roll. You have to use Philadelphia if you make it. The recipe is on my site. You can search the Skinny Confidential pumpkin roll. And this specific cream cheese just enhances the whole dish. If you wanted to use this cream cheese in other places, you could use it to dip veggies or crackers, have a snack on it, enhance your guacamole. There's all over TikTok, they're using Philadelphia cream cheese to add to their guacamole. You could also do a creamy pasta Alfredo, a buffalo chicken dip. It's just a really great one to enhance the dish or make it creamier. This is a cream cheese that I feel like we all know and love. It's also known too, when I was little, I always liked it in mac and cheese. It's the best. It's thick. It's creamier. Philadelphia makes everything creamier. Visit creamcheese.com for recipe inspiration and so you can start adding Philadelphia to your recipes at home. Visit creamcheese.com. One of the snacks that I have used to drop 60 pounds that's been a go-to all the time is my Greek yogurt with a specific granola. I love to do, here's the move, Greek yogurt in a bowl. I just get the A2 Greek yogurt from the store. And then I add Purely Elizabeth's granola on top of it. And then I'll do some wild blueberries. They got to be wild. And some raw honey. I'm telling you, it is creme de la creme. If you've not heard of Purely Elizabeth, they basically make the most delicious granola. I have been a fan forever. They also make oatmeal and cereals, which I give to my kids. And all of their ingredients are made from ancient grains, nuts, seeds, and they have this taste that's insane. But most importantly for me, it's a granola and an oatmeal and a cereal that's gluten-free. It's also vegan, non-GMO, and keto-friendly. It's woman-owned, and the granola that I like, you want to remember this, because I'm telling you, it's going to upgrade your Greek yogurt, which has tons of protein, is the original ancient grain granola, okay? And they have different flavors, but this is the one that I like, okay? This one is made with organic oats. Like I said, ancient grains, superfood seeds. They have chia, quinoa. I love to eat this situation right after I work out. Visit purelyelizabeth.com and use code SKINNY at checkout for 20% off site-wide. That's PURELY Elizabeth.com. Use code SKINNY for 20% off. Purely Elizabeth. Savor the start. What was your favorite celebrity to read? You read Khloe Kardashian, right?
Yeah.
She seems like a real fun one.
She's great. She, of all of them, is the one I'm closest with, and I'd consider her a friend. I would say my favorite reading, probably RuPaul.
Yeah.
You know, just because that's somebody I looked up to as a kid in a rural place, and then to be able to kind of help him kind of work through some trauma with his dad was something neither of us thought would ever happen. So it was pretty cool.
Are you always right?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Look, even Michael Jordan misses some of his free throws, baby.
That's true.
He does. Look, swing. Whoosh.
I'm usually right, so you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh wait, I might be clairvoyant because sometimes when Lauren talks, I feel a headache coming on in the
Uh-oh.
distance.
He's
It's
sensing
coming.
it.
It's coming.
There it
Wait,
is.
so
I can
you're
predict
not
it.
always right?
No.
What is something where you missed that you were like, fuck, I got that wrong?
Oh, let me think. When have I been really, really, really,
You
really
can't
wrong?
really think about
I
it.
was surprised. I was surprised of certain presidential elections. I didn't see that coming.
Huh.
Yeah, I did not see that coming. Like I said, I'm not good with like big, large scale events, things like that.
But
I'm
it's
much
but
more
on a
personal.
one-on-one, are you not always right, or are you usually right on one-on-one?
About 85%. There's always room for like misinterpretation or perhaps just human error.
What do you do when people get upset with you if they do get upset with you? Because you're dealing with some heavy topics here.
Yeah, upset in what way? It depends on which
Like
kind.
maybe somebody doesn't like what you're saying or doesn't like
Mhm.
what's coming through or is, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
or maybe they're like, they're
Yeah.
not ready to hear the message.
Totally. I definitely have to use discretion in the people that I read and be conscientious of being diplomatic with every person. I liken my job to that of a mailman in the sense that I don't write the letters, I just deliver the message. But how I deliver the message is my responsibility. And if I ever get the sense that someone's uncomfortable, especially if it's on camera, you know, we stop there. And I think it's very important that for people to speak up, and you know, consent and boundaries is key. But we have times where we talk about very heavy stuff, very difficult things. I encourage people to consider the message. And yeah, there's been times where people have had to get up and leave. I remember I read Anne Heche. I don't know if you guys saw that reading, but you know, that story, as tragically as it ended, that reading really reflected that intensity. She had to get up midway through the reading and had a very emotional experience. And she thanked me after, you know, for it. But it was one of those cases where I thought she was mad at me. You know,
What
she
did
got
you
up
say
and
to her in the
left.
reading? Did you know she was going to die?
No, I was very, very sensitive in handling that, in connecting with her brother. And her brother had a very tragic passing, and it came through and had relayed some very private details around her family origins and what she had gone through. And there were very encouraging messages. But to get the reality of that experience, I think, was more than she was expecting. You know, you have all different types of expectations when people go into readings. Something it's going to be real, something it's going to be fake. Even if you come into it thinking it's real, sometimes it's a little too real for someone to fully process in that moment. So they need to kind of take a step back. And that's what happened in that case. I truly feel I left her better than I found her, and I felt better for having met her. But you do have to deal with difficult subjects.
I don't want you to be diplomatic with me
Okay.
when you do my reading. I
Yeah.
want you to, you don't have to be diplomatic.
Just balls to the wall.
Balls to the wall.
You know, I'll just
I
drink
like
a thing of
intense.
vodka. I'll just be like the drunk
Uh-huh.
medium.
Uh-huh.
And be
Do
like,
you drink alcohol?
I don't.
I was going to say, I
Yet.
bet you don't drink alcohol.
I
Yeah,
don't.
but maybe after me you will.
Well, hey, that's an MTV show in my 30s. I'll just
Do you
the
not
boozy medium.
because you just don't like the feeling, you don't want to numb the mind, or you just don't,
I
no,
mean-
you just, alcohol's obviously not great for us. So.
Yeah, I literally have nothing against it. I just, for me, just unwind in different ways. It's kind of a boring answer.
It
isn't
would take his frequency, I feel like, off. Do you know what's funny? There's this book called The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, and there's this huge chapter about how the messenger always gets shot. And it's all about the messenger. And it would be really interesting for you to read about the history of messengers and how they
Yes.
get in trouble, because some of the things that you're saying, it's like someone hires you to be the messenger, but then they're mad at the messenger,
Right.
which is interesting. And if you look
Yes.
back, even if I look back on like my high school experiences, it was all when someone delivered a message to me that someone else said about me,
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting kind of frustrated at the person who delivered the message,
Yes.
which is, it's tricky for you
That's a good
because
point.
you are sort of a messenger.
Absolutely. Yes.
I
That is
just think
such a good
looking into
point.
messengers would be like the
Yes.
history of messengers from like the
Absolutely.
1800s would be cool.
Well, and this ring is of Eros, the ancient Greek god of love, but also relates to Hermes, the messenger god. And it's an archetype I love because it applies in so many different ways of having to travel. And, you know, this is a big part of it.
I have one more
I'm
for you.
I guess I'm
Yeah.
acknowledging that it's hard to be a messenger. It's not
Yes.
an easy. It's not an easy feat.
Yeah. It's a responsibility.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How do you think about generational trauma?
Yeah.
And do you see that? Do you see people coming through trying to kind of break that trauma, or do you see others that are dealing with, like, do you think it's something that is encoded in us without choice, or you know what I'm saying?
One of the questions you mentioned earlier was like, are there any greater themes that come through regularly? And actually speaks to that question of this idea that when people come through, so often they come in with this idea of you have broken the cycle. Or you are breaking the cycle, or sometimes you need to break the cycle. But there is something to be said about epigenetics, which is the study of heritable traits. There's been a lot of research done on it, particularly centered around Holocaust victims and the multi-generational effect of that on people's fears. But it's something that we see time and time again in readings, that people deal with that question of nature versus nurture. Are we what we are innately? Are we molded into what we are? Is it a combination of both? I'm inclined to think it's both, that we have some things that we are kind of born with, and then environmental factors can either bring out certain traits or shut them down. And I find that to be the case in readings.
Tyler Henry, you are one interesting cat. You're interesting. I mean, listen, we've interviewed a lot of people. This one was real interesting.
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous before this one. And I don't get so nervous on these things anymore.
I'm so glad that you're here.
Really, really, I just think what you do is incredible. I think you have a real gift.
Thank you.
I can't wait to do my reading.
Absolutely. We will make it happen, and you're more than welcome to sit in as well. And you never know, stuff might come through for you.
I want to see if something comes. Why don't you do your own reading and see if something comes through?
I will do it.
Yeah.
But if you ghost me, I'm gonna go on a fucking tailspin.
Can you imagine?
Ghost him? Like,
just don't respond.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not making light of what you told us earlier. I don't want to, but I'm saying if all of a sudden you're talking and you're just like, hey, I'm like, where's Tyler? Why wouldn't he return my call?
Yeah. He's a medium. He's ghosting.
I will go on a tailspin.
But Tiss, get it?
Oh my God, he can't ghost you, because then you'll know that you're
I'll
gonna
be like, I'm done.
No, you're good. It's so funny. I'll call friends and I'll be like, oh, hey, how's it going? And they'll go, why? And I'm like, I'm just calling to say hi, damn it. Like, what are you doing? So yes, it's all good.
Where can everyone get your books, find you, pimp yourself out? How can they book with you if they want to book with you? Give us all the things.
So yeah, I'm all over. Got social media, Instagram, Tyler Henry Medium. My website is tylerhenrymembershipsite.com, where people can get virtual readings every single month. On September 17th, I have a show coming out on Netflix, which is live from the other side. It's going to run 8 weeks. I'm so excited. It's going to be brand new, never done before. It's going to be really interesting.
And you gave us code SKINNY.
I gave you code SKINNY. It's for 20% off.
Yeah, you guys can go to the tylerhenrymedium.com, use code SKINNY. That's the right site, right?
That's right.
Follow along. I think it's so fucking amazing that you have an show and a Netflix show.
Thank you.
Like, at your age, you're an overachiever.
You know what? Well, I'm 28 now. It's the clock's ticking. I don't know.
Hey, don't say that.
Don't worry, I'm giving you an ice roller. I'm giving you an ice roller.
I need all the help I can
the
get.
ice roller will be perfect for shooting. Tyler Henry, thank you so much for coming on. You're amazing.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you so much, you too.